I think we can all agree that ISIS is the worst of the worst.
They're more extreme even than al-Qaeda.
A savagery unseen.
This is an evil, sadistic, monstrous enemy.
But the truth is that there would be no ISIS had it not been for the American-led invasion of Iraq, because ISIS is blowback. Remember 2003? We won the war in Iraq. A brutal dictator was toppled, Iraqis celebrated in the streets, and George Bush declared mission accomplished. But of course, it wasn't, and in fact that mission led both directly and indirectly to the founding of ISIS in 2013. How so? Well, to start, foreign military occupations breed violent insurgencies. They always have, they always will. Within weeks of the fall of Saddam Hussein, US soldiers had morphed from heroic liberators to brutal occupiers. In Fallujah, which would later become an ISIS stronghold, US troops opened fire on a crowd of peaceful protesters, killing and wounding dozens. At Abu Ghraib, the US military rounded up hundreds of Iraqis, many of them completely innocent, and tortured them in horrific ways. The shootings, the torture, the general chaos helped drive thousands of Iraqis, especially from the minority Sunni community, into the arms of radical groups led by brutal gangsters such as Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, the same groups, al-Qaeda in Iraq, ISI, that would later coalesce into ISIS. Next, in a criminally stupid and self-defeating move, the US occupying authorities disbanded the Iraqi army overnight, a move that shocked even senior Bush administration officials back in Washington, D.C.
This idea to disband the entire army was one that came as quite a surprise to me. We had a lot of out-of-work soldiers.
Yep, 500,000 or so Iraqi men, not just unemployed and pissed off at the Americans, but well-trained and heavily armed. Overnight, they became what Colin Powell would later call prime recruits for insurgency, as one ludicrously eloquent and informed college student told President Bush's younger brother Jeb not so long ago.
The threat of ISIS was created by the Iraqi Coalition Authority, which ousted the entire government of Iraq. Your brother created ISIS.
Today, it's no coincidence that much of the top leadership of ISIS consists of former top officers in Saddam's army, or former army. Now, I know what you're thinking. How did secular Baathists, Saddam's people, end up fighting alongside Salafi jihadists? Well, the answer again is blowback. The US helped introduce them to one another. Which leads me to my last point, Camp Bucca. That's the name of the post-war US detention facility in southern Iraq, in which around 100,000 Iraqi men were held. Again, many of them were completely innocent. It's where jihadists, ex-soldiers, and yes, ordinary Iraqis met, networked, recruited, and radicalized in what a Camp Bucca guard would later call a pressure cooker for extremism.
What Camp Bucca and other military facilities ended up being luxury radicalization centers.
It then became a management seminar for upper echelons of ISIS.
There were large numbers of people who weren't against them in the first place when they went into Bucca, who were very much against them when they were released.
Oh dear. One former Bucca detainee was none other than Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. You might have heard of him. He's the founder of ISIS. Yeah, that guy. According to Iraqi terrorism expert Hisham al-Hashimi, the loathsome Baghdadi got more radicalized while in US detention, where he, quote, absorbed the jihadist ideology and established himself. Thanks, Camp Bucca. To recap, the US built, ran, supervised a recruitment center for the guys who would go on to create ISIS. Madness.
Him and others were able to write their contact details on the white elastic of their boxer shorts, their prison-issued boxer shorts, and that was a way that they networked.
As one former ISIS commander told The Guardian, if there was no American prison in Iraq, there would be no ISIS now. Bucca was a factory. It made us all. It built our ideology. Now you might say, of course an ISIS commander is going to blame the Americans for everything. Of course he's going to say that. But it isn't just him. Listen to David Kilcullen, former advisor to both General David Petraeus and Condoleezza Rice, and widely considered to be one of the world's leading experts on counterinsurgency.
Biggest strategic screw-up since the invasion of Russia by Hitler in 1941 was the decision to invade Iraq in 2003. There undeniably would be no ISIS if we had not invaded Iraq.
Ooh. Listen also to the former President of the United States.
ISIL is a direct outgrowth of al-Qaeda in Iraq that grew out of our invasion, which is an example of unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences, aka blowback. But the current president of the United States has his own theory. He's claimed ISIS is a result of the withdrawal of US forces from Iraq by Obama in 2011.
The way he got out of Iraq was the founding of ISIS. I mean, with his bad policies, that's why ISIS came about.
If
he would have done things properly, you wouldn't have had
That's
ISIS.
true.
Therefore, he was the founder of ISIS.
As is so often the case, Trump has it backwards. It wasn't the getting out, it was the going in.
At this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
There was no ISIS in Iraq before we invaded. We helped put ISIS in Iraq and beyond. Yes, the Iraqi government's corruption and the Syrian government's repression also contributed to the rise of ISIS, as did a vicious Salafi jihadi ideology funded by some in the Gulf. But you can't get away from the original sin of 2003 and the blowback from that invasion. So when it comes to the world's worst terrorist group, remember, we sowed the wind and now we all reap the whirlwind.